Hey guys, it's me, Dr. Cameron Dennis, physical therapist, Back on Track Therapy and Wellness, run coach, and founder of this group. So I wanted to talk briefly about the debate that's been going on in this group. It's been beautiful. Lively and respectful debate is one of the greatest things that you can do to learn, right? Because I think the whole point of this group is to have others' opinions and see what's worked for others, what's not worked for others. And to learn. So, James, what's going on? So, I wrote down a couple reasons that I want to talk about why we do stretch, why we don't stretch. Okay, and this is my opinion. My opinion is based off of what I see in the clinic and what I see in current research and literature, which we try and base all of our treatment off of, or most of our treatment off of, as that sort of guides us in the right direction, typically. So first off, I want to differentiate between the dynamic versus the static. And I know this is fairly basic, but I think it's important that we notice the difference, because when reading through some of the debate that we've been having in the group, it seems that some folks say are gung-ho about stretching, and then you find out that they're talking about dynamic stretching. So Harley, Brad, how's it going, guys? So the debate that really, where it really started, was talking about static stretching. So static stretching is where you, for example, do a hamstring stretch where you just hold your leg out in front of you, typically either sitting down or reaching down to touch your toes or something like that, and you're just holding that for 30 seconds to a minute. Okay, so typically just what you think of when you hear stretching. Okay. Oftentimes done in yoga and things like that. There's an important differentiation between this, though, and I want to go into why it's okay to do it in yoga and why it's effective. Okay, so but before we do that, dynamic stretching is going to be more, I hate to say ballistic, but it's more active. So leg swings is a good dynamic stretch. So that's one of my favorites to do, or maybe arm circles to warm up your shoulders, things like that. Okay, so it's not holding it, but it's moving your muscles, moving your joints through an active range of motion. So why would somebody do stretching? Okay, a lot of people are saying that they do static stretching because their physical therapist told them to do it. Right? I would argue that's outdated. Okay, there may be times when it's okay to do static stretching in a rehab situation. Like, for example, you should be able to tolerate a light stretch or even a moderate stretch to your muscles. That's one form of loading the tissues. Darcy, how's it going? That's one form of loading the tissues. So if you can't handle when someone does a light stretch on a muscle, you're probably not ready to move into a lot of plyometric activity or even high-level strength training, because the sensitivity of that muscle is still really high. So it's just one way of applying a load to the muscle early in rehab to try to get it to the nervous system to calm down and to show your body that you can move through this range of motion, right? Chance, how's it going? So reasons that I think is okay to do stretching. A, it helps relax muscles. So a lot of times we'll do it after an activity, after running, after weightlifting. I will sometimes do static stretches just because it helps to sort of calm the muscles down and helps relax them. Does it increase the range of motion? Temporarily, it does. It typically will increase the range of motion temporarily. And when I say temporarily, I mean minutes. Okay, it doesn't increase your range of motion for any real length of time. Okay, and there is an asterisk to that, because if you do it long enough, so say you do it for 2 minutes, I believe the latest study I saw was if you stretch and hold for 2 minutes, and it has to be a vigorous stretch, so really getting in there and stretching that muscle. Stretch for 2 minutes. I can't remember how many times they had me do it, but you have to do it throughout the entire day. So you're doing it 5, 6, 7 times a day. Okay, vigorously stretching for 2 minutes and holding it. that resulted in an improved tolerance to stretching, which essentially means that you're able to stretch the muscle further, but there's no change in the actual length of the muscle. You're just able to stretch it further without having the same level of discomfort. Sandy, how's it going? So the question is, are you getting strength through that range of motion? Maybe, if you're strength training through that range of motion. So reasons to do it: it feels good. Some people do it as part of the routine, or they've had success with it previously. And I think a lot of this has to do with our perception of what is actually being successful. You know, what is it that was successful? What caused you to be able to return to running? Was it the stretch? Maybe if the stretching was showed you that you're able to go through that range of motion and it sort of calmed down your nervous system and you had a good return to running plan or program, I would say, yeah, it probably did help. And like I said early on in the rehab world, reasons not to stretch. Let's talk about this. Justin Thompson's on. How's it going, brother? Static does not improve flexibility unless it's done consistently. Okay, and or you do strength training through that newly gained range of motion, and I mean within minutes. Okay, so say you're doing a deadlift, you do a quick hamstring stretch, and then you get down into the depth, right? You get down into that deadlift starting position. Good to hear it, Justin. Get down in the deadlift position. You're now into that newly acquired range of motion for the hamstrings, and then you're strength training through that, right? You're using that new range of motion. That's going to help improve the carryover of that range of motion gain. Okay, so if you're simply doing static stretching and you're not strength training through it, you're not getting the results that you think you are. You might be temporarily for several minutes, it might feel good, but you're not really improving your flexibility unless you're strength training through that. Okay, and like I said, this is not a hard and fast rule. Okay, this is my experience in a clinic. This is my experience based on what I've seen in the medical peer-reviewed literature. Okay, not based on opinions and this and that, based on other runners and whatnot. So the other thing to look at is why do muscles feel tight? Is it because they're shortened? I would say, yeah, they could be temporarily, but typically the answer will be because they're overworked. So oftentimes when we have people who aren't resting a certain muscle group, say they're running, overtraining, and maybe they increased their volume too quickly, or maybe they just started doing hills all of a sudden. Just one day they went out and did tons of hills. Okay, their hamstrings or their glutes might be super tight the next day. Why is that? Is it because the muscles have shortened? Functionally, they may feel shortened. They may feel tight because they've been overworked. Okay, so the muscles and the body sort of creates this situation where everything feels tight. And I believe it's a protective mechanism. But if you'll notice, if you do light range of motion, so if you're moving through a comfortable range of motion, you begin to do isometric strength training through that after an appropriate amount of time following that overtraining bout, then what you'll notice is that range of motion will start to return. So if it feels tight, it doesn't necessarily mean that the muscle is truly shorter than it used to be. It might mean that you did too much, or you've been chronically doing too much, and you need to change your workload of running and weightlifting, whatever it is, and B, start doing strength training through those, and make sure that you're doing smart progression back into whatever volume that you're talking about, whatever volume that you wish to get to. What are my thoughts on foam rolling for tightness, Dwayne? That's a good question. I think it could be a good thing. You almost have to monitor the response to it. And I very rarely say you should do something or you shouldn't do something. It depends on the person. With foam rolling, I think I don't use it a lot in terms of like smashing down muscles, things like that. I know some people do, and it's sort of popular there for a while. And I hope it's phasing out, because I think it's another one of those things that it just kind of gives the body another sensation, right? So it helps calm down the muscle, it helps calm down the nerves. But is it improving your range of motion? Probably not. Is it making any physical changes to the muscle? Probably not. Does it allow you to move temporarily a little bit better that may result in improved overall movement and recovery? I mean, I would say, yeah, it can. And if it does for you, then I say go for it. I say the same thing with stretching. If it helps you, go for it. What I would tell you that in terms of static stretching is I would avoid doing static stretching before you run. I'm going to repeat that for those in the back. I don't think you want to be static stretching before you run. The reason for that is because when you're getting ready to run, you want to increase the body's neurologic response to activity. You want to increase the blood flow to that area. So we're essentially preparing your body to the activity that it's about to perform. Okay? By static stretching, you're doing the opposite. You're calming it down. You're settling down muscles. You're basically telling the body that it's time to kind of calm down, right? So dynamic stretching, leg swings like we talked about, doing some of the more running specific looking things, even doing a short jog that's a much slower pace, or doing like a dynamic fast walk or fitness walking can be a good dynamic warm up to get the muscles that you're going to be using to increase their blood flow and improve the response to activity. Okay, so Darcy says, so if you are increasing running by following a plan and you're feeling sore, it is not overtraining, but more so not enough strength training. I wouldn't, no, not necessarily, Darcy. I would say if you're feeling sore because you're doing a new program, I would say that's probably normal. If you're feeling excessive soreness, then it's possible you need to back off slightly. So if your is lasting for like a week after one run, then or you're really sore, and then every time you run it just sort of perpetuates and it's just getting worse. It's possible that you need to take a few days off to let yourself recover, drink plenty of water, maybe slow down your pacing a little bit, but draw back that volume slightly, allow your body to recover, and then start to build up from there. So hopefully that makes sense, Darcy. So that's what I wanted to talk about. Just an overview for those of you who are maybe afraid that I was implying that that you shouldn't be stretching. I want to tell you that I'm not saying that. I am saying that dynamic stretching is going to be way better, in my opinion, before you run. Static stretching, way better after you run. Does it improve your range of motion for long term? Probably not. Not unless you're strength training through that range of motion within several minutes of doing the static stretching. But I would argue even a dynamic stretch would be more effective in that situation, because you're then drawing in more blood, getting the muscle prepared for the activity, right? So hopefully that makes sense. If you like to stretch, continue to stretch. If it's worked for you in the past, there's no real danger in doing so, unless of course you're doing extensive static stretching before you're about to do a high level bout of activity such as running or weightlifting. So hopefully that makes sense to you guys. Once again, this is Dr. Cameron Dennis, physical therapist with Back on Track Therapy and Wellness, and founder of the Running Injury Support Group. So hopefully you found that useful. If you did, let me know below, and be sure to check out backontracktherapy.com, where we have a lot of running resources that are injury specific. You look up exactly what injury you're dealing with, what area of pain you're dealing with, and then there will be all of our content that we've ever created on those subjects right there on the page, totally free. So you guys have a good day, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks. Bye.